Hi, crafties, and welcome to Weekend Crafting Adventures. I'm Kim, and this crafting project was super fun to do. It is a 3D layer paper Shadowbox project. And the inspiration behind this project is my first actual podcast episode I did making a basic card. And I really struggled with finding the right kind of adhesive. And as I've been doing different projects, I've continually trying to figure out and ask people and crafters, what adhesive are you using for your paper crafts, cards, and things like that? And so I definitely wanted to get back into a craft that allowed me to experiment and try some different kind of adhesives besides glue. And this project is definitely that. The other inspiration behind this project is kind of finding a way to bring the outdoors just a little bit into my workspace in my classroom. My classroom does not have any windows in it. And so there's no outside light, no nature that is brought into my classroom. So I thought maybe I could find some of these layer paper projects that were around nature. Of course, I love the mountains and that kind of thing, and bring that into my classroom to kind of bring a little bit more just of nature into my classroom workspace. And so those are the inspiration behind trying this project. And I do want to talk about a couple of really important resources and materials that I used for this crafting project. And I want to start with the resources. So like I've always said, when I'm going to do a project, the first thing I do is jump in and research and try and find somebody that has some great information about the project that I'm looking to do. And I stumbled across this amazing article, blog post with so much amazing information and tips for these layered paper Cricut projects. And that is from hellocreativefamily.com. This is an awesome article, blog. It's got links if you want to purchase things that the person used in your project. So I, of course, will always put the materials I use and the resources where I'm finding the information for each project on my blog post. But I had to shout out to Hello Creative Family because this really helped me with a jumping off point for this layer paper project. So a couple of the really important materials that I want to highlight that I used in this project were some Cricut craft board. I used that to create the shadow box that I am putting my layered paper project in. I did buy some fairy lights because one thing that I felt like would really kind of enhance this project and bring it to the next level was to add some little fairy lights inside of the shadow box. And so I did purchase a set of those. Recollections cardstock. I think I got a 200 pack of the cardstock because at the time that I bought the cardstock, I wasn't really sure exactly what design I was going to be putting together with the layered paper. And so I wanted to have a wide variety of colors to choose from. And Crystal Allen from Hello Creative Family recommended that kind of cardstock. And so I thought I'd go for it. I'm actually really happy with it. Let's see. I did use a scoring wheel. Back when I did my first card project, I did not have a scoring wheel, and I have one now. So I did use that when I was making the craft board shadow box. So that was pretty important. And then, of course, the adhesive. So I bought some of these little foam double-sided adhesive little cubes, and they came in strips, rectangles, and squares. And I was going to use those to put in between the layers to create that 3D effect with the cardstock, and some glue dots. These are like double-sided little sticky clear pieces of glue, and those were just flat. So I was hoping, based on the recommendations that I read in the article and doing some research, that would be primarily what I needed to put together the paper in the 3D way and layer it the way that the designs show. So for this project, I did use all of the designs from Etsy. So a lot of times I'm able to find the designs that I want in Cricut Design Space, but for this project, I wasn't able to find exactly what I wanted for layered paper 3D projects in the Cricut Design Space, so I went to Etsy. So I do want to highlight the 3 things that I bought on Etsy. The first one is the Shadowbox design. So the Shadowbox SVG I bought from Chippewa Studios. I think I'm saying that correctly, but that was recommended again in the article I read from Hello Creative Family. And I am so glad that I found that resource. The Shadowbox is awesome. There is great instructions that come with that purchase, which was $4.90 for the Shadowbox SVG to make your own Shadowbox out of craftboard. I chose to do that. You don't have to do that. You can buy Shadowboxes anywhere, but I decided I wanted to go ahead and make my own, and her instructions and tips are amazing. And the next SVG that I purchased from Etsy was from Cut Leaf SVG, and it was like a 3D mountain scene. And I did go with pretty simple layered projects because I've never done it before, and I just wanted to get a feel of that kind of project. So Cut Leaf SVG for a 3D mountain scene. And then the next one was from Magic Vector Laser. And that was the other design that was, again, a nature design I chose because I wanted to have 2 different layered paper projects to try. They both had different aspects of nature that I thought would be fun to not only light up with the fairy lights, but I thought they would be a nice complement to each other. And then also for my workspace, for my desk workspace in my classroom, I was really excited about the idea of putting the fairy lights in them because I think it'd be really fun to have that little light going on at my desk while I'm working. And so I did get battery operated fairy lights, and I did look for SVG designs that I thought I would be able to add those fairy lights in pretty easily and it not be too much of a difficult process. I do think the most challenging part of this project, well, there were 2, but the first one was picking the designs I wanted. I definitely spent a lot of time trying to find the right design, and I went back and forth between doing one nature scene and then one of these really cute, fun animal layered paper projects. And I definitely will be doing one of those in the future, but I ended up going with the 2 simple nature designs. And the experience of this project was really fun. I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was going to. So the process of cutting the cardstock paper on my Cricut actually went really well. And it went really well because I followed a couple of tips from Crystal Allen at Hello Creative Family. And the first tip that I took away from her that I absolutely love is that you need to think about your cutting blade when you're using your Cricut machine. And the tip that she had was to put in a new blade for this project. And the way that she kind of explained it was like, if you think about your scissors, I'm a sewer, so I have fabric scissors, and then I have scissors that I cut paper and all my other stuff with. I would not use my fabric scissors on paper, and I wouldn't use my paper scissors on fabric. And so when I thought about it that way, I was like, oh my gosh, what a great tip. So I did change out my fine point blade into a brand new blade that now is going to be my cardstock fine point blade. I will have a separate one for my vinyl and the other things that I cut. So I did take that tip and put it into action, and it made the cutting process of the cardstock go really well. The other thing I did is I made sure that I used a clean, light grip mat, cutting mat for the project. And then the third thing that really made the process go smoothly was a tip from Chipala Studios. And what she suggested was to mirror the design on Cricut Design Space before cutting out the cardstock. And the reason she suggested this was that a lot of times the side of the cardstock that's facing the cutting mat tends to get a smoother cut. So when you peel your mat away from your cardstock design, the side that was facing the sticky part of the mat is what is going to be facing out in your layered paper project, and that cut would look smooth. And I absolutely love this tip. I used it and I completely am now all on board with mirroring my cardstock designs. I had never done that before. Really, the only thing that I've been mirroring is the heat transfer vinyl. So this was definitely something new that I learned, and I love that. So that experience went really well. One of the other things that I did do, one of my designs, the 3D mountain design, had 10 layers, and the colors were all kind of a blue grade except for the moon and the background color. So I did get out my sticky notes and make sure that I separated the layers in Cricut Design Space to see exactly what number they were. And then I matched my colored cardstock with what I wanted that to cut out for that color. And then once I did that, I labeled my cardstock with a tiny little sticky note numbered 1 through 10, so that as I was getting ready to load that color onto the mat, I knew that the color I wanted would be cut with the design it matched in Cricut Design Space. And that really helped me to keep those little sticky notes on the cardstock, not only before I cut it, but after for the layering process. Once I got both designs cut out and I had my Shadowbox cut out, I put that together. That went really smooth because of the directions that were provided by Chipala Studio. I mean, not only are there written directions, but there's tips and tricks, like I mentioned before, and she actually puts pictures. So it's like a visual of what you should do for each step of putting together the shadow box. I am a visual learner, so that definitely helped me out, and that went really well. So on to putting the layers together for my designs and using the adhesive glue dots and double-sided foam adhesive. It was awesome. I love it. I am so excited to find an alternative to glue for cards and paper projects that I'm doing with my Cricut machine. I mean, it really, really went smooth. It was pretty fast. Putting the designs together and layering them was not as challenging as I thought, and the outcome is beautiful. I'm so excited to put them on my desk. But one thing that I did that I think I would do differently next time, I put together all of my layers of the 2 different designs with the adhesive glue dots and with the foam double-sided adhesive. I used a 1/8 inch foam so that there was a little separation between my designs because I really wanted that 3D effect. And I knew I wanted to put fairy lights in, so I wanted to have a little space in between the layers to do that. So I put all my layers together, and then I went back and tried to add the fairy lights. This was the only other challenging part of this project. And I think what I'll do next time I'm making a layered paper project is, as I am putting the layers together, I will be adding the fairy lights with the glue dots as I go. Trying to put them in at the end, I had to then take apart some of my layers and then put them back together. And I had a little bit of paper that was cardstock paper that got pulled from some of the adhesive. So that was not ideal. I still got it to work, and I love how the fairy lights look in the 3D mountain shadow box. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited to bring it to work. But it was challenging because, again, I waited till the end to put those fairy lights in. So next time, I'm going to put the fairy lights in as I go, layering them, like I said, with the adhesive glue dots, the really thin, double-sided, clear glue dots that I could just bend and twist the wires of the fairy lights, put the lights where I really wanted them to be, emphasize the different areas of the layered cardstock project, and stick them there and have them stay. So that is definitely something I learned in this project that I'll be taking with me for the next time I am creating these layered paper projects. So my crafting keepers for this episode, I actually have 3. I tried to narrow it down to 2, but really I learned some great new tips from doing this project. And so I've got to highlight all 3 of them. The first one is going to be changing out that fine point blade, making sure that I have one blade for my vinyl, one blade for my cardstock, and not changing them up, just to make sure I have the crisp, clean cuts that I want for both of those different types of materials. And again, I'm going to shout out that Hello Creative family for giving me that tip that now will be in my crafting corner. The second crafting keeper is going to be my newfound adhesive, the glue dots and the double-sided foam. These are going to be a game changer for my paper crafting projects, and I'm super excited about them. So that is the second crafting keeper. And the third one that is from Chippewa Studios is going to be that mirroring the cardstock image before Cricut Design Space, in Cricut Design Space, before my Cricut cuts out the paper, just to make sure that the smoothest cut is what is showing on the outside of the design for the completed project. So 3 crafting keepers from this layered paper project. And that brings me to my Satiscrafttion rating, which absolutely is a 5. I really was surprised at how much I enjoyed this project. I mean, I knew it was going to be fun and I was excited to try it, but the experience of layering the papers and watching the project come together, and then adding the fairy lights, even though it was a little challenging, the way it looks at the end is absolutely beautiful. So I'm super excited about this project, and I will definitely be making some of those fun animal layered cardstock projects. I also was thinking there would be some really fun ones to do for Valentine's Day coming up in February. So that is it for this crafting adventure. And until next time, take care.
That's all for this episode of Weekend Crafting Adventures. Now go get that Cricut machine off the shelf and get crafty. For more information on this crafting project, interesting tips, tricks, and techniques, visit WCApodcast.com. Until next time, when we embark on another adventure.